Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our Visual Analytics Soup to Nuts webinar. First off, my name is John Vasic, and I'm a partner here at BICP. And before we start the presentation, I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about myself and our company. Personally, I've been involved in reporting and analytics since 2002, and my primary responsibility at BICP is account management, and also putting together and managing all the BI teams that we deploy globally. Our company is a dedicated data analytics and BI services organization, and we're focused specifically in big data, including SAP, HANA, and Hadoop, as well as advanced visualization, advanced analytics, and data science. Additionally, we're a certified SAP Services Partner with very deep relationships within SAP's HANA organization and product development groups, as well as being frequent sponsors and contributors to SAP Insider and ASUG, both regionally and nationally. Currently, we have a team of approximately 70 data scientists, big data, SAP BI, and business analytics employees and consultants. And at this time, we're involved with some of the largest and most complex global business transformations of SAP BI, big data, and advanced analytics in North America. Our value proposition is a flexible, low-overhead business model that leverages focused teams of highly experienced consultants, which allows us to deliver customized, best-in-breed solutions to meet your business's reporting and analytics needs. If you have any specific questions about our service offerings and capabilities, I invite you to contact me at jvasic@bicp.com. You'll also find my personal contact information in the webinar protocol overview and the last page of the presentation itself. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce the presenter for today's webinar, Sam Henoch. Sam, the floor is yours, my friend.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. My name is Sam Henoch. I'm a BICP consultant. A little bit about myself. I attended Florida State University, where I studied biology and chemistry. I've been in data and analytics for about almost 5 years now. I've worked in healthcare, nonprofit, pharmacy, and pharmaceuticals, and I'm currently at Nike in retail and apparel. So, just before we start, let's go over the webinar protocol. Everybody is going to be muted, which I should probably do now. If you have any questions, please submit them to @moderator in the chat window, and if we have some time at the end, we'll have a little Q&A. Any follow-up questions, please, again, as John said, send him an email at jvasic@bicp.com. And this will be recorded and posted on our website if you'd like to review it later, or for those of you who are unable to join. So, what are we going to go over today? So we would cover a little bit about hosted data source management, what it is and when to use it, dev stage and prod and versioning in Tableau, and then some high-level overview on maintaining your flow and dashboard development. So there's this idea in big data currently of one source of the truth, where everybody's trying to get their data into some sort of lake or into the cloud, where everything you need is at your fingertips and you can get at a moment's notice. Now, the issue with that is, let's say you have a group of analysts who are all going to the same base table or the same view to get their data and build out a report. Well, when you keep doing that and sending your custom SQL to the database and you have 4 or 5 different people or different analysts at any one time doing that, there's a lot of exchange, and that can really slow down your efficiency as far as getting the data that you need where it needs to be. So how can we get around that issue? Well, using Tableau and hosted data source management, you can get away from ugly queries like this, where you have 5 different people sending the same thing to the database at multiple times, and get back to hosted data source management. So within Tableau, you have the ability to build a new view, take your data, and host it on a Tableau server platform, wherein everybody who needs that data can access it, and you get away from this exchange between 10 different analysts in your database to everybody pulling data from the same spot. And with this, you have the ability for automation and scheduled data refreshes. So let's give an overview of how we might do that using Tableau. Let's say you go to your base table and you create a new view and you have some calculations that you're doing, some custom ETL, and you've created this new base table that you want everybody to use. Well, to keep everybody from hitting that table simultaneously, within Tableau, you have this amazing ability to connect to your data using we use Teradata. So you can connect Teradata to your base table and throw that in. And here we have all of our back-end calculations. Let's say we wanted to get an idea of 4-week on-hand units. And the reason you would want to do this is, let's say you have a bunch of different groups who need this one metric. Well, rather than, again, hitting up the database simultaneously, you create this new version where the calculation's already done, it's pre-processed and pushed right up the server. So from here, we can create our new table and push this directly up to Tableau server in a dev environment and set scheduling with it. So here now, Tableau server is handling the refresh schedule and the exchange with the database and pulling that data in at the cadence which you preset. So now when you go to Tableau server, it's all done and you're pulling data down rather than shooting a query to the database and then pulling data again. So from there, there's the old adage, I don't always test my code, but when I do, I test in production. Let's say you set up your new hosted data sources in Tableau server, but maybe you want to add something to your new table, where you have a new metric that you want to add, or maybe a new way of calculating a metric. Well, the last thing you want to do is you have a bunch of reports that are going to your high-level stakeholders, and maybe the calculation is slightly off, or the data isn't fully validated. It's helpful to have environments where you can play around, sort of a sandbox where you can test your new ideas and your analysts can play without fear of sending out bad information or having somebody misinterpret a metric that you're providing. And one big issue that people have with Tableau that I hear all the time is, well, you can't version and there's no testing environment, and when you push it up, that's it and it's done, so it better be right. Well, that's not necessarily true. Within Tableau, you have a very distinct ability to create dev stage and prod environments where you can push all of your data to, and it's something that we, as BICP analysts and at Nike as well, do all the time. So going back to our hosted data sources, let's say we now have our dev environment where we have our new calculations. Well, creating a stage and prod environment is as simple as duplicating, renaming the stage, and pushing up to Tableau server. So we have staging environment here. And the great thing about this is the benefit of having dev stage and prod environments is you can set a refresh cadence at different intervals for all of your different data sources. So let's say you refresh dev and stage, pull new data into there. You can test, you can validate, you can create new calculations if you need new metrics and push those up, and go to here. Let's see if we refresh. Now we have our stage environment where we can play around and test new code and set a new refresh rate for it. That way, when we get to testing, we don't have to worry about pushing things into production unvalidated or unverified. And as you can see, that creating dev, stage, and prod environments takes all of maybe 5 minutes. So once you're set up from there and you want to start creating your dashboards, you have your new hosted data sources, everything's extremely fast, nobody's hitting up the database multiple times. You know that each analyst that's using this data is getting the same values for their reports. Now you want to create a new dashboard to display this information. Well, one thing that's both a benefit and a detriment with Tableau is it's very easy to create very pretty visualizations. As you can see here, there's a lot going on, a lot of great bar and dot dual axis charts and some time series, but what's really happening here? Well, we know we have item sales and we have specific items of sales and current over prior, but where should we be looking? Where should you be directing your attention for this particular dashboard? You've done all this work to create your base tables and get your data sources where they need to be, but you're stumbling as far as production goes. Well, that's where it's very important to get an idea of how you want the viewer's eye to move across the page and where they're supposed to be looking. So in something like this, it might seem maybe a little blank, but what do we have here? Let's say you have a high-level stakeholder that comes in and they just want to know high-level item sales, 4-week sales on hand versus prior year, sales units and weeks on hand for maybe particular areas or certain items. They can have that information, but Tableau allows you to give them a very quick ability to drill into your information at the click of a button. You can have distinct acceleration, specific styles within certain items, accounts that are selling these items. So your from high-level stakeholders to your more in-the-weeds analysts, with the same report using the same data, can dig into different levels of detail. And even further into that, if you want to know specific items or specific styles and accounts, Tableau gives you that ability. So with this dashboard, you can notice a distinct flow from very high level and acceleration, draws your eye across the page, and then down to more granular details. And this is a concept that you want to keep in mind when building out dashboards is where does the eye flow and where do you want people to look and direct their attention with building out these specific dashboards. So let's show maybe from the beginning now that we have our data sources, what should we be doing to connect? So we've created our dev stage and prod environments. Connecting to them is as easy as going to Tableau Enterprise. Oh, hey, this is a fun one to show. Interesting. So sometimes Tableau might have certificate issues where you can't connect to server. That's a very easy fix. Let's come in here. Give me 1 second. There we go, on-the-fly problem solving. So from there, we can now connect to our dev or stage or production environment if we wanted. Okay. And now we're connected, and as you can see, we have all of our base calculations that we set up in our hosted data source. And one thing that they might be wondering is maybe, well, what if people modify these calculations that we've set up in our base table, or they want to edit them? Well, that's possible. You can edit copies, but a good thing about Tableau with hosted data sources is once you create these, you can't delete or modify the base calculations without making a copy first. So you can ensure that if anybody wants to modify, it's a new calculation, and at the root, your base table still has the same values that you put together.
Yes, absolutely.
So I apologize. I think I skated through that fairly quickly at a high level. Are there any questions that we can hop into as far as building hosted data sources, dev stage and prod environments, or building out a visual flow?
Hey, Sam.
Hey, John.
Hey, appreciate you covering, covering the topic. I think you did a great job. I did receive a few questions in the interim that I'd like to go ahead and cover. First question, when are hosted data sources suboptimal, or should we always be using hosted data sources?
That's a good question. So here's the thing with hosted data sources. They are there, in my opinion, to overcome the issue of having multiple people hit up the same tables in the lake, so to speak, that then slows down and makes building reports for analysts less efficient overall. So when to use hosted data sources, I would say, is in a situation where different groups are going to be using the same data looked at in a similar fashion or using same base metric calculations. So it's almost like an insurance policy that numbers being presented. If you were to see weeks on hand as a metric, weeks on hand in Department A is the same as weeks on hand in Department B. Now, when is it really suboptimal is, let's say you're using just flat files and pushing them up to Tableau server. Those are situations where it's still a fairly manual process where somebody needs to generate the flat file and then update that on server. It's not necessarily automated. Or in situations where you have just one person using the data source at one time, or it's a very unique system that they have set up, or a very custom ETL job that maybe them and one other person is using to look at data in a very specific way, then, you're gaining some speed in that situation. However, it's really taking up just taking up space on Tableau server. It's never a bad idea, and you may have a question of, as far as like data security, Tableau does have the ability to set security on who can access what data sources, and in fact, you can do that yourself when publishing. We come to our data. Let's say we wanted to publish this to server. You can set distinct users and groups and roles for who can access these, and these are all set up on the Tableau enterprise side, where maybe specific users can see this, or specific groups that you set up are able to access this data. Tableau also has the ability to set row-level security, where let's say a user has a distinct key that comes with their username. When they connect to the data, it would pass through a true or false calculation that you set that says this user meets this criteria and therefore can see these rows or all of these rows. So you really don't have to worry about, as long as beforehand you set up the proper security implementation for your hosted data sources, you don't have to worry about it getting into the wrong hands. So yeah, as a roundup, I would say the best time to use hosted data sources is when you have multiple people using the same data. Suboptimal would be with flat files, or if you or one other person are the only people that are using this. But overall, not a bad idea to just put everything on Tableau server if you are using Tableau to connect to this data.
Great. Thank you, Sam. Second question, how long does it take to transition from dev a prod, or how long would it take an analyst group person to set up these environments?
Not long at all, honestly. Moving from dev to stage or stage to prod at a data source level is very straightforward. As we've shown here, it's as long as it's the same data, which it should be if you're using from dev, stage, and prod. It's as simple as duplicating and renaming, and then publishing to the specific folder that you need. Now, talking about folders, if you wanted to create them on the Tableau side, to come back to content. If you have experience with Tableau Server, Tableau Enterprise, if you're an admin in your specific site, you can create new folders for dev, stage, and prod, which we have here. You can see null staging, null dev, and our production environment. When you create these environments, you can then publish your data sources directly to them. And again, it's as simple as just publishing the server, selecting the appropriate folder into which this would go, and then setting your permissions, if you have any, or authentication for refresh, and then publishing. So an entire analyst group, now this is assuming that they have their views that they would like to use already set up, and any stored procedures that refresh these from other base tables already set up. But assuming that, the creation of a dev stage and prod environment in Tableau Enterprise can be done in as little as 30 minutes, including security setup. And that's, that's a plus or minus depending upon the number of users that you have and the type of security that you want to set up. But publishing takes no time at all. So transitioning, if you're currently using Tableau Enterprise and using Tableau Desktop to build your reports, creating these environments can be done very quickly.
Excellent. And we have a third question here. What are the alternatives to hosted data sources?
So there are multiple. You could just hit directly wherever you connect to your data, if it's SQL or if you're using Teradata or Greenplum. Tableau has multiple areas to which you can connect to get data, or just flat files. Your alternatives are the base data connection types. An alternative to hosted data sources that is similar, if you have a shared drive within your group, creating a folder where your flat files are set up, and maybe you have a stored procedure in Teradata or in Toad that pushes these flat files directly to that folder. So as long as everybody's connected to that same file and the file name doesn't change and the location doesn't change, then that's a comparable alternative to Tableau hosted data sources. However, even there are issues where, things could get modified. Somebody changes the name, directory gets changed. It can be tricky. But beyond that, connecting live to your data sources with custom SQL, or connecting directly to a base table, or with shared drives.
Terrific. And I just sent out a message. We have a few more minutes. Are there any additional questions before we wrap up the call? All right, great. Well, Sam and I would like to thank you all for your time today. Again, if you have any follow-up questions, please do not hesitate to reach me at jvasic@bicp.com. Additionally, the PDF version of this webinar, as well as the audio, will be available on our website shortly in the media section at bicp.com. I hope all of you have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, Sam. Thank you.